You know, people think it's for monks or supermodels and stuff like that. But I'm here to tell you it's for everybody. Last summer, I had a 20-year reunion / barbecue / swim party to go to. And I'm done but had to drop about 85 pounds. So thanks to fasting, what has 2 thumbs and look good in a swimsuit? This guy. Thank you, Jesus.
A healthy you. God wants us to be healthy on the inside. God wants us to be healthy on the outside. I think today of this series that we started last week, and we talked about prayer. We talked about the importance of prayer, how God wants to answer prayer, how God wants to take care of some issues in our lives as we bring them before the Lord, and God is working on our behalf. What an awesome thing it is to know that we can bring our cares and our concerns before the Lord. God's word says, until now you've not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. What a great thing it is to be able to pray. Well, today we want to couple that prayer with fasting. Fasting. The word fast in the New Testament literally means to not eat. That we would choose to deny ourselves certain kinds of food so that we can gain God's favor and attention and make a statement to Him regarding how important the situation is. And we're going to talk about the importance of bringing fasting and prayer together. What's interesting is that in our society today, fasting is becoming more popular. And so I was reading a recent article, and it came up with 10 reasons, 10 benefits why people should fast, and that would surprise us. These are not spiritually based things. These are things that the world's come up with. Number 1, fasting helps you lose weight. Yeah, interesting. Number 2, fasting improves insulin sensitivity. So if you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and you're struggling in that area, it's interesting how, be careful obviously how you fast, but as you do so, your body becomes more sensitive to the insulin that it produces. Number 3, fasting speeds up the metabolism, which obviously goes back to number 1, helps you lose weight, right? Number 4, fasting promotes longevity of life. They've done a study that people who fast tend to live longer. Interesting. 5, fasting improves hunger. Well, that one's obvious, isn't it? Number 6, fasting improves your eating patterns. They went into a long discourse about how when you change your eating patterns, it throws your system off in a good kind of way, and it causes you to re-pattern your system to go the right direction. Interesting. 7, fasting improves your brain functionality. You actually think better as you fast. Interesting. Number 8, fasting improves your immune system. Would not have thought that. Number 9, fasting contributes to self-enlightenment. In other words, you tend to prioritize your life better. They went into that. And 10, fasting helps clear skin and prevent acne. Interesting, isn't it? Certain benefits that you receive from fasting. Well, none of those necessarily are the reasons that we're going to talk about today, but I thought I'd share them with you because even the world's coming up with ideas and concepts medically that help us with the whole concept of fasting. Well, today I want to give you 7 keys to fasting, and we're going to move through them rather rapidly today, but I think they're very important for us to understand from a spiritual perspective why we should be fasting. Number 1, fasting is commanded by God. God has commanded us. He is expecting you and me to be fasting. We go to Matthew chapter 6 in the Sermon on the Mount, and it says, when you fast. Notice it doesn't say if you fast. It says, when you fast, do not look somber, as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when, not if, when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. That when we fast, we shouldn't necessarily be talking a lot about it. We're doing it, it's between us and God. Obviously, you're going to need to talk to your family about it, because if you're not eating certain foods, not eating certain meals, it's obvious. And so communication obviously needs to happen. But what God is saying is, when you fast, it's expected, when you do this, don't look somber like the hypocrites do. Don't look like, oh, I'm fasting, kind of thing, right? But rather, kind of, our version of that, 2,000 years later, would be take a shower, get dressed like you normally would, put your makeup on, ladies, like you normally would, do whatever it is that you normally do, and just keep going on about your day. And then choose to fast and pray. And as you're doing this fasting and praying, set that time aside to pray, but don't make it this overly obvious thing to everyone around you. Second, fasting is not only commanded by God, but second, fasting strengthens you spiritually. Really important that we get this, that you are strengthened on the inside when you fast. I know every year we've done this now 5 years. This is our 6th year to do this fasting and prayer in January. I know as a pastor, we get to the end of January, our congregation, our church, all campuses are going to be more spiritually acute. They're going to be attentive to things spiritually speaking, because you've just come through a time of fasting and prayer. That will be taking place. It'll happen in your own life. It'll happen in the life of our church as a whole. Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 3 says this to us: when Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil, and after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. There's an obvious statement, right? The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. So Jesus was tempted by Satan, and Satan went right after the thing that he was maybe dealing with in that moment. Isn't that just like the enemy? In other words, he's coming off a fast, he's hungry, so now Satan's saying to him, turn these stones into bread. Jesus combated the temptation, 3 of them, that the enemy gave him, each time by quoting Scripture. How important it is that we hide God's Word in our heart. Because when we need it most, God brings it back to our remembrance, and He helps us with standing firm in what needs to happen. But before all of that took place, Jesus prepped it by fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm not necessarily asking you to have to fast for 40 days and 40 nights, but I am saying that when you fast, there's something that happens inside of you that makes you more connected with the things of God, because you're choosing to set other things aside and you're focusing more on the Lord. As a result of that, God strengthens you on the inside spiritually. Third, fasting moves the hand of God. I love this. I love how when you choose to fast and pray, bringing fasting and prayer together, when you choose to fast, God sees your heart. And when we collectively choose to fast and to pray, it moves the hand of God. We go to Jonah in the Old Testament, Jonah chapter 3. We pick it up in verse number 5, where it says, so the people of Nineveh believed God. Well, let's set the tone for that. God had given Jonah an assignment. The assignment was go to Nineveh and preach a message that Jonah wasn't so excited about. The message very simply was 40 more days and Nineveh will be destroyed. He didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, so he hopped ship. He tried to get as far away from God as he could. How many of you know you can't get away from God, right? So while he's on the ship, God brings up this storm. Everybody's freaking out on the ship, except for Jonah, because he knows exactly why the storm's there, because he's disobeying God. So he says to the people on the ship, throw me overboard. They finally throw him overboard. The storm goes away, and people go, whoa. Right? My paraphrase, you won't see exactly that one in Scripture. The essence of it, you will. And a big fish swallows Jonah. For 3 days he's in the belly of the fish. The fish then spits him out on dry ground, and Jonah says, okay, I'll go. Well, I would hope so. Right? He He goes, he preaches the message. Delivers this message to Nineveh, a bunch of non-Jewish, non-Israeli people. And the people of Nineveh repent. Something powerful takes place. It says, so the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, put on sackcloth, from the greatest to the least of them. And God saw their works, verse 10, that they turned from their evil way, and God relented from the disaster He had said He would bring upon them, and He did not do it. What an amazing episode. What an amazing example that God was going to do this thing, and because the people of Nineveh heard the voice of the Lord and they believed it, they then proclaimed a fast throughout the land from the greatest to the least. They put on sackcloth. How many of you have ever put on itchy clothing before? This is the ultimate example of that. Okay? And they put on sackcloth, they proclaimed a fast, and they turned from their wicked way, the greatest of them to the least of them, and moved the hand of God. God saw that. He saw their works. He saw that they had turned from the evil way. He saw that they went in a different direction. God relented. He backed away and said, okay, there's a change. There's a change in their heart. So I want to remind you that when you fast, when you choose to fast, when you choose to draw closer to God, when you choose to press into the things of God, it's amazing how God sees that and He answers the prayer of your heart. If you weren't here last week, we started this 21 days of prayer and fasting on Monday. We're 7 days into it. If you haven't gotten on board yet, get on board. Get on board for the last 14 days. Choose to fast and to pray. Choose to grab a hold of the heart of God and say, God, I'm serious about this thing that's going on in my life, this thing that's happening in my family, this thing that I want to see changed. Bring that before the Lord and let God do His amazing, miraculous work in your life. How many of you today have something that you need a breakthrough in? Raise your hand. You need a breakthrough. Just raise your hand. You need a breakthrough, whatever it is. You're a prime candidate for prayer and fasting. Fasting moves the hand of God. Which leads nicely to point number 4, that fasting, when coupled with prayer, produces breakthrough. It produces a breakthrough in your life. In Mark chapter 9, verse 25, it says, when Jesus saw that the people came running together, He rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to a deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more. Then the spirit cried out, convulsed him greatly, and came out of him, and he became as one dead, so that many said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had come into the house, His disciples asked Him privately, why could we not cast it out? And so He said to them, this kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting. This kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting. God wants us to couple the prayer and the fasting together. The disciples couldn't cast that demon out, but Jesus did. And when we choose to fast and pray together, it brings about a greater breakthrough than what we can ever imagine. Let me share with you a need that's going on in our church, and you may be aware of it. We made a presentation to the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago. There, across the street from us, there's a desire for one of our neighbors owning property to put in a huge, supersized gas station and mini-mart with all sorts of bells and whistles to it. And a part of that would be the sale of alcohol. Well, what's interesting in the state of California is that there is a statement that has been made where it's recommended that no sale of alcohol be given within 600 feet of a school, a church, or a park in the state of California. That property is 300 feet from us, so we made the appeal to the Planning Commission and we asked them to abide by that, we lost that vote 2-1. Wow. And so I bring it to you today because we are now on the agenda for the city council meeting here in Victorville on Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. And I am asking that you would do a couple of things. One, that you would add this to your prayer list as a part of our season of prayer and fasting, that God would give us favor. In the, I'll say the flesh, so to speak, our sense is that we would not have enough votes to win this thing. There's 5 city council members, we would probably lose the vote either 4-1 or 3-2. But how many of you know but God? Right?
God.
So we're going to appeal to the city council and say to them, same thing. You know, we're not here to stop economic development of our community. We would love to see economic development in our community, but the fact is that you want to put in a supersized gas station with sale of alcohol, which interestingly enough was brought up as, oh, the sale of alcohol is just a small portion of what we're doing. And of course, then the question was asked, well, if we don't give you the license to sell alcohol, would you proceed? They said no. So obviously that alcohol license is essential to what they're doing. And so we want to come back and say, look, we have no problem with needing to put gas stations in. We understand it. Just don't put it inside 600 feet of a school, a church, or a park, as directed by the state of California. Not mandated, but directed. And we'd like us to uphold that. I'd like you to make that a matter of prayer and fasting as we move into a city council meeting starting Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Would you do that? How many of you would do that for me? In addition to that, I need a whole bunch of people to show up at city council meeting at 6 o'clock. In fact, probably be good if you're there at 5:50. And just by sheer presence, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to just come. And yes, I am recruiting. I am recruiting today. Yes. I mean, in all honesty, don't raise your hand if you're not able to do it. How many of you are able to go and be at city council on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock? Raise your hand. Come on, keep raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Okay. It's a serious matter. I mean, once something like this goes in, it's not going to come out. It's going to stay. Interestingly enough, it's right next to the apartments too. And the apartments deal with enough stuff already. And the apartments will deal with more stuff. Once you put a gas station in, you deal with more stuff around gas stations. Just trust me. Okay? It happens on a regular basis. I'm not trying to turn that into this, but I'm just giving us an example of things that we may want to see breakthrough in. Bring them before the Lord. Let God fight the battle for you. Amen to that? Amen. What do you want to see happen in your marriage? What do you want to see happen in your kids' lives? In your grandkids' lives? Rhonda and I have been talking about this as we've been, obviously, into this now a week. And the thing that is on both of our hearts, we have things that we want for our kids that are super high on the priority list of all the things that we're praying for. There's certain seasons that we go through certain things that you pray for certain people because you want to see that happen in their lives, right? We have not because we ask not. Ask. Ask and you will receive. Ask, bring it before the Lord. Ask God to fight the battle. Ask God to bring certain things about. Ask the Lord to do those amazing things within your life. Can I get an amen to that?
Amen.
Isaiah chapter 58, verse 6 makes this statement. In fact, Isaiah 58 is a great chapter on fasting. I encourage you to read it. We get to verse 6, and it's a really interesting statement that's made there. It says, "No, this is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free. And remove the chains that bind people." The kind of fasting I want. So here's the deal. Back in the Old Testament, Isaiah's days, Isaiah's bringing this message forward as from the Lord. And as Isaiah's bringing this message before the people, he's reminding them that they needed to fast properly. How many of you have ever come to church? You don't have to raise your hand. Or you know of people who have come to church, and yet you can be in church but not be in church, if you know what I'm saying. Like you could physically be here, but mentally and spiritually and emotionally, you're somewhere else. You've already checked out. You know, if you're interested in football games this afternoon and all of that, you know, you may be checking out, right? You stay engaged, right? That we could be physically present, but not really fully engaged with what is going on. That is exactly what Isaiah is calling out amongst the Israelites as the nation is fasting. He's calling them out and saying, you're just going through the motions. Your heart's really not in this. And so I want to remind you that when you choose to fast and pray, your heart needs to be in it, because God sees straight through it. Don't just do this because this is now the 6th year that we're doing this. And every January we take 21 days in January, we set aside as a time of fasting and prayer. Don't just do it because of that. Don't do it and lose your focus. Stay focused on what God has called you to do as we take this season of fasting and prayer. Amen to that? Got that? Amen. If we don't, we've missed out on this thing entirely. In addition to that, it may just be that as you pray, and you're praying, God, I want to see an answer over here. Maybe you're part of the solution. Maybe God is raising you up to use you to be a part of the thing that He wants to do. There's a song that's out there today where in the midst of the song it's talking about a bunch of injustices that are taking place, and in the song it says, God, why don't you do something? And then the song goes on to say, I am doing something, I made you. That sometimes the answer is not God raising somebody else up, the answer is God raising you up and me up to be a part of something that we wouldn't even imagine that we would be doing. So we reread this verse again, and we set more context to it. In verse 6 it says, once again, no, this is the kind of fasting I want, says the Lord. And I'll put you in front of each of the 4 phrases. You free those who are wrongly imprisoned. You lighten the burden of those who work for you. You let the oppressed go free. You remove the chains that bind people. In other words, we can pray, God, do something about this. And is that wrong? That's not wrong, but just maybe in the midst of fasting and praying about it, God wants to raise you up to be a part of the solution, to speak life into somebody else's life. Don't let somebody else do what God's asking you to do. Let God raise you up. 10 years ago when we came to serve as your pastors, Rhonda and I did with our kids, I wouldn't have imagined that we're doing what we're doing today. Truly, it wasn't even a thought in my mind. So I received a phone call 2 years into this from the superintendent, Rachel's from the SoCal Network of the Assemblies of God. He said, John, you got 2 churches in your backyard in Apple Valley and Hesperia that need some help. Can you help them out? I said, sure. What do you want me to do? And thus unfolds this whole concept of what we're doing today. Now 9 campuses later, here's what we're doing. Amen. Never would have guessed we'd be doing what we're doing today. When you choose to say yes to God, when you choose to be a part of the solution, and God raises you up, He may just be raising you up in 2017 for such a time as this. Don't back away from that. Embrace it. Embrace what God is calling you to do. Embrace what He's doing in your heart. So maybe, even just maybe, during these 21 days of prayer and fasting, as you're praying for God to do certain things in certain people's lives, He may be prompting you to do something specifically about it beyond praying for it. And if He is, and you sense that God is leading you, you need to obey His command. Fifth, that when we fast, we need to know that fasting humbles us. And that's a good thing. I know it's something that God keeps speaking to my heart about. But I want to remind all of us that God opposes the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. I'm not that great. Neither are you. but with God, He does great things through us. And fasting has an amazing ability to kind of reprioritize what needs to be most important. In Psalm 35:13 it says, "Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting." Very simple statement, yet very powerful. That when we choose to fast, we recognize, God, I need your help. I can't do this thing on my own. I can't do this thing without your help. I need your blessing. I need your strength. I need your help. That leads nicely to point number 6. And point number 6, very simply, is that fasting unlocks the favor and blessing of God. How many of you want God's favor in your life? I can't live without it. I can't live without it, friends. I need God's favor. I need God's blessing. I need God's strength in my life. We go to Ezra in the Old Testament. In Ezra 8:21, it says there by the Ahava Canal, he says, Ezra was saying, "I proclaim a fast so that we might humble ourselves before our God," whether it's the humility thing all over again, "and ask Him for a safe journey for us and our children with all our possessions." Let's take the last one. Let's go backwards. How many of you have ever gone on vacation as you drove out the driveway, you said, "Lord, please protect the house while we're going on vacation"? Right? It's okay to pray over your possessions. Your possessions aren't more important than people, but it's okay to pray over your stuff. God, protect the stuff. In the midst of what's going on in our world today, protect the stuff. That's fine. But I'm also reminded of the very simple phrase, "and our children." That part of what prayer and fasting is about is praying for the generations. That we can come before the Lord and not only ask for safety for us, but safety for them. God, place your hand of protection upon their lives. Your hand of breakthrough in their lives. Lord, give them favor with their employers and in their school. Give them opportunity for good things to take place in here and here. Be specific. I just want to challenge us to make sure. Be as specific as you possibly can be. There's nothing wrong with praying, "God bless so-and-so." But I wonder if God's going, "Well, I wonder how you want me to bless them." What's more on your heart? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more as to what's on your heart. Okay? How important it is that we realize that we need to bring specific prayer requests before the Lord and allow the Lord to do His amazing work in our midst. How important it is that we do that. Which leads us to the last and final thing, the seventh thing. That fasting should precede major moments. Major moments in your life. Some of you may be facing something major in your life, maybe in your work or some major thing that's going on, maybe a friendship that's going awry, and before you hit those deadlines, before you hit something that is really critical that's in front of you, we need to make sure that we incorporate prayer and fasting into it. And I take us to the book of Esther today, because in Esther, it is a powerful statement for us to know that God raised Esther up for such a time as this. Esther became queen. If you're not familiar with the storyline, Esther becomes queen. And yet in the day, even though she was queen, she didn't have the ability, the right, the authority to bring up political cares and concerns, needs that were going on within the realm of that region to the king. That would have been known as being illegal for her to bring those things up. And so we understand that as we unpack this story, that the Jewish people's lives were at stake here. Here, Esther herself is Jewish. And it may just be that God placed her in that situation of being so close to the king so that the Jewish people could be protected. Digress for a second here. Obviously, the inauguration is taking place this week, and a transfer of power is happening in our nation. obviously started in November and culminating in what will be taking place on Friday. And I want to challenge us as a congregation, as Romans 13 says, to pray for those in authority over you. That we would pray for our outgoing president and vice president, and for their families, their lives. But we'd also pray for the incoming president and vice president, and for their families and for their lives. That we don't just pray for one versus the other, but as believers that we would pray for all of them, because we're called to do so. And I do find one thing really interesting for me personally, that the incoming vice president of the United States is a devout believer. And what's interesting is that if he ran for president, he may have been crucified in the media and the press. But here, in the midst of all what has taken place, the number 2 guy in the land loves Jesus with all his heart. For day, I and my attendants will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. She knew, as she was challenged with what was in front of her, she knew that there was more at stake than her own life. That so many other Jewish people's lives were at stake. And so she made the statement to her friends, let's fast and pray. And for them, they chose 3 days, what we'll call an entire fast, a full fast. Food, drinks, everything, not having a single thing for 3 days. That is a tough fast, friends. And she said, I'm going to join you too. For 3 days, we're going to seek the heart of God. We're going to seek where He is. And I'm going to approach the king. I know it's against the law, but there's something bigger at stake here. And if I perish, I perish, but I've got to stand up. I've got to do what the right thing is. The wonderful thing is that in the storyline, as we continue on with the story, it's not recorded in your message notes. But if you were to read the rest of the book of Esther, you would see not only that God came through in a huge way, and God gave her favor with the king as she brought up some things before him. But also in addition to that, that God brought some things forward where the king realized some other stuff that was going on and dealt with the other stuff in a very appropriate way. How often it is that when we let God fight the battle for us, He does it completely and entirely. That we may take on a portion of things, but God does exceedingly abundantly more than what we could ever ask or imagine. God goes the extra mile. And He took care of some additional things that needed to be taken care of. See, friends, what you and I may take months or years to do, God can do in a moment, in an instant. And when we choose to precede major events in our lives, and we bring them before the Lord through fasting and prayer, it's amazing how God works in those moments in a very, very, very powerful way. Fasting should precede the major things that are going on in our lives. And when we ask God to come through, He always does. Let me just talk about the fast here for a moment. We're now a week into it. And for some of you, you're hitting stride, you're doing well. For others of you, you haven't started yet because you missed last Sunday, or you just, it's not a burden of your heart, so you haven't. I want to just kick you into gear and say, start doing it. Start doing it. This is powerful, friends. You want to break through in your life, you want to break through in somebody else's life, start doing it. Make prayer and fasting a natural part of your life. For some of you, taking on a 3-day full fast, that's difficult. I'll tell you. But to do a partial fast and give certain things up, you can do that. Some of you can give up chocolate. Some of you go, I can't give up chocolate. I get that. But you know what? You can do it. You can make that happen. Some of you, you're not a sweet kind of person, and so giving up the chips and salsa and the Doritos and the salty stuff, you can do that. For some of you, it's that bowl of ice cream that you love to have at 8 o'clock at night. with all the syrup on top, and you pour some nuts on top of that, some whipped cream and cherry on top of that, right? All right, who's hungry, right? Giving that stuff up, right? Giving that stuff up. You need to decide what it is. And if you're newer to this, don't try to tackle the world. Okay? Because as we jokingly talk about it, that Snickers bar at 3 o'clock in the morning is going to scream out to you, right? But there's certain things that you can take out of your diet and say, Lord, we can take soda out of our diet. We can take certain caffeine out of our diet. We can take certain sweets out of our diet. Right? We can take certain breads out of our diet. You pick and choose. Some of you want to do what's known as a Daniel fast. Daniel chapter 10, Old Testament, 21 days. Daniel fasted. It was primarily about vegetables and fruit and nuts and certain things like that. And God used that in a powerful way in Daniel's life. If you want to receive more information on the Daniel diet, it's at the information code. You can pick up that as you go today. For others of you, fasting food is not an option. I get that. If you're a diabetic, God understands that. Fast something else. Give up something else that means something to you. Because, God sees your heart, and if it's not that meaningful, God's sure like, what is this, a joke? Right? And so maybe it's television. The amount of time that you watch TV and choose to pray that amount of time. Maybe it's social media. Get off of Facebook. Get off of Twitter. For a season. Somebody's passionate about that. Right? And redeem that time. Some of you, especially maybe if you're a little bit younger, need to fast video games. Maybe you're like, oh, now that one really hurts, right? So you figure out what it is and turn it into what it is that you want to grab the heart of God on. I know people that are doing the full 21-day thing. Some people are doing like one full day during the week. Some are taking a meal out of their diet. They're fasting lunch and they're fasting breakfast every day. And they're turning that into their prayer time. And you figure out what you want to do and just bring it before the Lord and participate in this thing, because God sees your heart. God sees what's going on. God expects us to be fasting and praying. Am I making sense today? Let's be a part of this thing, because it truly does move the heart of God. The conclusion for us very simply today is fasting must be an active part